Yo, welcome to Ipos Audio. My name is Liam Dawson Thomas, and right now I'm going to be showing you this drum boosting tutorial. I'm using Ableton. Ableton 8 might be kind of old at this point in time. I don't know. Um, and I'm also going to be using the Supercharger GT by Native Instruments. Let's have a look at this little note real quick. So drum boosting, we're going to be using equalizing and compression. With equalizing, we're taking out frequencies, dropping some frequencies down, and then boosting other ones. With compression, what we're doing is we're squashing the dynamic range. So let's say this is kind of the dynamic range of amplitude, right? So like the thing that's the quietest is right here, and the thing that's the loudest is right here. With the compressor, we put a threshold. So anything over this threshold gets squashed back down. So anything that was up here gets squashed down to here. So that decreases the dynamic range of the amplitude. And then what we do is we increase the amplitude of everything and raise it back up. Or that's one technique, and that sort of fattens everything up. And when you do that on an entire kit, it can really glue the whole drum kit together. So equalizing and compression. Then I'm going to do this other section called how to make your own supercharger. The Supercharger GT is this tube compressor by Native Instruments, but I'm going to show you how to make your own using just Ableton effects. So yeah, that's what is in store. Let me show you this beat that I'm working on. We're going to be messing with the drums on this one. I'm going to boost these suckers up. So yeah, here, have a listen. So let's just check out the drums here, solo them out here. Kick, snare, hi-hat, cymbal, percussion. Now we're going to EQ everything within the drum rack, within this drum rack section right here. So anything that's within this yellow line is the drum rack. So if we drag in an EQ to our kick, you'll see, yeah, it's within the yellow line. Now if we had the EQ outside, this would be what it looks like. There's this gauge in between. This is EQing everything at once. So we want it to be specifically on the kick here. Let's open that up and drop in some EQs to the rest of them. Each one gets EQ'd individually, and then we compress everything. Also, on the outside of the drum rack, I'm going to put a spectrum so we can look at the frequency range and see what's going on. Yeah. So the first thing on my list is the kick. Let's solo it here. So it's hitting right here in below the 100 range, right here. That's where it's hitting the most. So I'd say we can cut out some of the unneeded low frequencies and just boost it a little bit by a couple of decibels right here, right at this range here. Then I'd also say cut out a lot of the highs out of this, and because this is a kind of a nice mid-range. So we can cut out the highs and just boost this mid-range here, this low mid-range, I guess. So that's our kick EQ'd. Let's check out our snare. It looks like we can trim out all the lows up to this line right here, so this line. Then I'd say kind of go through and find a frequency within this range, you know, depending on what you're doing. I'm working mainly with trap and dubstep drums, so it's kind of like this routine could work on other kinds of drums. It's just a matter of how you go about EQing and given the context, like if it's a live drum hit and it just sounds better to you with the EQ here than it does down there, then I don't know, I'd say go with it, you know, but I like boosting this where it's at its lowest. You can also do something higher, a little bit more. Yeah, slim that down a little bit, maybe make it right here. We can also probably pull out some of the highs. Just a little bit though. Okay, so, but for snares, I would say anywhere from this 200 range, like boosting this 200 range, it's pushing it once you start reaching 1K, but anywhere down here gives it a nice punchiness, like a full, mid-range sound. So yeah, that's the snare. Let's do the hat. It looks like we can trim out a lot of the low and the mids. We're just messing with the highs. I'd even boost this a little bit, trim out some of the lows, and boost right here. Yeah, there's the hi-hat. Let's check out the cymbal. Similar to the hi-hat, but we're bringing it here, and maybe boost this a little bit. Even fatten it up a little bit more. And you'll notice that with all of these EQs, I'm usually never going beyond this 6 decibel line. And when I drop something out, same thing, like if I were to cut out a frequency like this, I usually wouldn't go below this 6 decibel line. So, just kind of keeping it within a certain amount so that it's not, up here is more for like experimental and different kinds of things like that. So yeah, let's trim out some of these highs and just boost it a little bit. Okay, so that's the cymbal. Now we can check out this percussion shot. Looks like we're going to cut out a lot of these lows and boost this section here. boost this section. Just to give it a little bit more punch and a little bit more brightness. So yeah, I think that's pretty much our EQ. Just run through, that's our kick, our snare, boosting it around here. I'd even maybe boost that up a little bit more. Hi-hat, and it's like adjusted all to your to your own taste, like when you're doing this. There's our cymbal and there's our percussion. So yeah. Now we can take out this spectrum and we're going to move on to the supercharger, which is going after the drum rack. So everything is EQ'd on the drum rack, and now we're compressing everything at once. All of the samples of the kit. So this supercharger works from left to right. This is the input trim. This is the saturation. Then it goes into the compression. Then there's this, what's it called? A character knob, which is essentially just an EQ. You choose which frequency you want, low, medium, or high, and then you boost it up. And then you have an output knob. So we work from left to right. First, we start with this input trim. It'll blink red on this side or this side and tell you which way you need to go. If it's in the yellow, then it's in the sweet spot, so to speak. That's pretty good. I'm just going to use a little bit of mild saturation. So that's distorting the sound a little bit. It's not too much, it's just a little bit of mild. Now we're going to move into the compressor. Bring down the attack and release. So that they're a little bit tight, or a little bit, they're kind of gentle. Now, this is the -4 notch on this gauge, this gain reduction gauge. Usually, since we're doing the whole kit, we don't want to squash anything too much. We kind of just want everything glued really nicely, so we don't want this gauge to go past -4 as a rule of thumb, I guess. So yeah, let's see what we can do. Okay, now here's the character. Let's make it fat. Let's beef up the low end. Now here's our output. I like to push it right up to that 0 point. Make sure it doesn't go into the white. I guess that's when it starts to, it's in dangerous territory, I guess. Yeah, so here's what it sounds like without the compression. Here's with compression. Might be a little bit too dirty. Bring this saturation down. Um, but yeah, let's have another listen. Yeah, I think everything's EQ'd really well. We took a look at everything um, with the spectrum analyzer. Got some really nice curvature to our EQ, uh, and kind of fine tuned how we want it to sound. And then we compressed the entire kit with this supercharger here. So, just to show you one more time, this supercharger has a certain amount. It's like a couple different modules. There's like this one, and this one. So with this one, we have an input trim, a saturation, and then we have this section, which is our compressor. And then we have this character, which is kind of like an EQ. And then we have an output. So let me show you what I've created. I think this would go in audio effect rack. Yeah, the Ultra Charger. So it's got a utility, a saturator. Hold on a second. I'm gonna keep this supercharger and just turn it off for now, and show you the difference. So here's our Ultra Charger utility, saturator, our compressor, our EQ, and the limiter to cap it all off. So this has all of the basic, bits and pieces of the supercharger, but this is our ultra charger. So let's see what kind of damage we can do with this thing. Let's bring down the gain a little bit. Let's bring it down by like 2 decibels, just because we're gonna start messing with it. We might boost it up a little bit. So. Let's bring down the dry wet of the saturator. Maybe turn soft clip on. And boost the drive. Let's try another one. Let's do digital clip. Hard curve. That one's really intense, so let's just use a little bit. Okay, so now we have our compressor. Let's move it to opto. Let's bring our attack and release down. And this one is similar to the supercharger, but here's the -6 point. Usually I don't have the gain reduction go below this point. So let's smooth out, let's increase our ratio and then smooth out our knee. And then start bringing this down. Let me just... I'm going to turn this back on to analog clip. I like that better. It's not too intense. So we've got our gain reduction on our compressor. Boost it a little bit more. Yeah, it's playing around that -6, but we're peaking, so we have to compensate. Now we have our character section, which is just an EQ, and we can just boost the lows, you know. Now we can limit and boost the gain on the limiter at the end, so we can increase the amplitude here without going past the ceiling. It's essentially another kind of compressor. So yeah, that's pretty much it with the ultracharger. So yeah, it's utility, saturator, compressor, EQ3, and a limiter. So let's have a listen to it without any compression. Let's listen to it with the supercharger. Let's listen with the ultracharger. But yeah, pretty similar, right? Just kind of boosted everything up a little bit. So yeah, that's drum boosting. And like I said before, it's not a set in stone kind of thing. Like depending on what samples you're using, uh, you know, um, shape your EQ to fit them, and don't just have one preset on your compressor that you always go to for everything. Kind of, even if it is a default preset, mess around with it and really sculpt the sound and mess with the sound. And accentuate it. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I appreciate you watching through this, and I hope you make some really fat fucking drum kits with this shit. All right, peace.